Sign up for free Stratfor Intelligence. Simply enter your email address to receive 2 free reports each week.
Israel and Hamas began operationalizing the deal that was struck last week, according to which an Israeli soldier, Gilad Shalit, would be released in exchange for 1,027 Palestinian prisoners. The process is still underway, but it is a significant one, considering that this is the first substantive negotiated settlement between Hamas and Israel, and there are implications that stem from it. The release of Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit in exchange for over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners has set a precedent by which Hamas and Israel have demonstrated that they can negotiate and reach a settlement. What this means is, or at least paves the way for, is that future such negotiations can take place between the Palestinian Islamist movement and the Jewish state. This allows Hamas to be able to demonstrate that it is a pragmatic player that can engage in substantive negotiations and behave as a rational international political actor. That said, Hamas does run into problems because it needs to balance this newly emerging perception of a rational political actor with that of a resistance movement, one that doesn't recognize Israel, rejects the right of Israel to exist, and continues on the path of armed struggle against the Jewish state. Hamas isn't the only political actor that will have implications from this deal. Its rival, Fatah, is now in a more difficult position because Hamas, from the point of view of the Palestinian people, seemingly has demonstrated that its approach to negotiations, coupled with armed resistance, is one that can actually pay off. So Fatah is under pressure to demonstrate that it is not negotiating from a position of relative weakness, and its approach to negotiations and to dealing with the Palestinian issue through international channels is actually the right way to move forward. And certainly Israel has its own challenges moving forward after the Gilad Shalit deal. On one hand, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government has demonstrated that it can take a pragmatic approach to the Palestinian issue, and therefore it can relieve some of the international pressure that it has been in recent months. But at the same time, having positioned itself as a centrist force, the Netanyahu government, headed by the Likud party, is now having to deal with a potential backlash from more right-wing forces, both nationalist and religious, who are not entirely pleased with the notion that one Israeli soldier can be secured in exchange for over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners who have committed acts of terrorism against Israeli citizens. On the international front, the Netanyahu government has definitely made some gains. But at the same time, it could run into some complications when it comes to Egypt, because Egypt is the one that brokered the final settlement. And Israel is very concerned that Egypt's military rulers do not run into any problems when it comes to popular sentiment, especially as it applies to the Palestinian issue. And therefore, Cairo's military rulers can be expected to use that Israeli dependency on them to their advantage on the domestic political front, which may not necessarily jive with Israeli interests. The Israeli-Hamas deal is an extraordinary event that comes at an extraordinary time when there is no shortage of issues raging in the region. But one thing is clear, that it has set a precedent that can unfold in many ways, and we'll just have to wait and see whether this leads to further negotiations or more conflict or a mix of both.